is your name, please?
My name is Brandy Griffith.
What is your name, please?
My name is Brandy Griffith.
What is your name, please?
My name is Brandy Griffith.
Two of these people are imposters. Only one is the real Brandy Griffith and is the only one sworn to tell the truth. Now, here is our host, Bud Collier.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and welcome once again to Tell the Truth.
My name is Polly Bergen.
My name is Jackie Cooper.
My name is Kitty Carlisle.
And my name is Gardner.
Everybody laughed at that. Everybody laughed when I said that. You know, Jackie, it gets to be a little bit like an old saw, but it's one I always like to cut with, and that is a welcome to you.
Well, thank you.
Such a joy to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be back, Bud.
Now, these three gentlemen that you've just seen, of course, all claim to be Brandy Griffith. Only one, of course, is the real Brandy Griffith. The other two have merely assumed his identity, and they are the ones who do not have to stick to the truth. Panel, will you please follow along with your copies of this first affidavit as I read it. I, Brandy Griffith, am a captain in the United States Air Force. I am a former bomber pilot and also hold a Doctor of Science degree in electrical engineering. For 2 years, I was stationed at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. While there, I did Air Force research on nuclear-powered aircraft. I am presently stationed at Cape Canaveral, Florida, where I am project officer and chief test control officer for the Air Force Thor-Able missile firings. On October 11th, we fired a missile farther out into space than man has ever probed before. We are now preparing another shot, in which we hope to put a satellite in orbit around the moon. Signed, Brandy Griffith. Now, panel, we all heard these three gentlemen claim to be Captain Brandy Griffith, Moon Rocket Project Officer. Only the real Captain Griffith, of course, is required to answer your questions truthfully. You will each question as you usually do until you hear this signal. At the end of the questioning period, we will ask you to mark your own ballot as to which one of these three gentlemen you believe to be the real Brandy Griffith. And we begin our questioning tonight with Gardner. Hi.
Number one, we had the CO of Cape Canaveral on this show some months ago. I wonder if you'd give me his name and rank.
Major General Donald N. Yates.
Uh-huh. Number two, what was the moon missile named?
It was a Thor-Able project. The payload was named Pioneer.
Number three, how much before the Pioneer was fired was it given the name Pioneer?
Well, the name Pioneer actually was assigned, but was not to be officially released until it had made itself
How
in
much
orbit.
before was that?
Well, if there is a time, as far as I know, it has not been officially given out.
Number two, who pressed the button?
There really isn't a button.
Uh-huh. Number one, who pressed the button?
There is no button. It's automatic sequence.
Number three, who pressed the button?
It's an automated sequence.
Uh-huh. I guess there's no button.
Except button
Where's the
cut.
button?
Polly?
Oh. Number one, it said that you were stationed at Oak Ridge for a while. What large city in Tennessee is that near?
Near Knoxville, Tennessee.
Number two, what outpost first picked up the missile as it was coming down, as it came back into the atmosphere, or whatever you call it?
The Hawaiian station.
Number three, whatever happened to that mouse that went up?
Well, the mighty mouse is still missing, ma'am.
Number one, what is a force day?
Force days?
Force day.
Force day. That's classified information.
I ask a question that's classified.
About that.
Don't fool around with me. I know.
No, sir.
Number two, what's a force day?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jackie?
Number two, it says here that you're a former bomber pilot. What type of bomber did you pilot?
B-24s and B-29s.
B-24s and B-29s. Did you pilot during World War II?
Yes, I did.
You did. Number three, what is the glide ratio of a B-24? Do you know?
Approximately 11 to 1, depending on the load.
Number 1, do you know?
That would be about 11-1 or the load.
Number 2, what newspaper today carried a story that the moon missile didn't reach its destination because it was too perfect, you know?
I didn't read the newspapers today.
Kitty?
On what frequency, number 1, did Pioneer radio back to the Earth?
There were two frequencies, 108.6 millicycles and 108.9.
Number 2, at what height did Pioneer discover lethal radiation reached its peak?
This data has not been completely analyzed yet.
The firing, number 3, was off by some degrees, and it failed to reach the moon's orbit. How many degrees was it off?
Approximately 3.51 degrees.
Number 1, did you have anything to do with that old mouse that was in the thing?
Yes, I did. I placed the mouse into the missile.
Shame.
A trap is all right, but a missile ride isn't, I see. All right, there we have it. The time is up. It's time now to vote. So without consultation, panel, mark your ballot. And select number 1, number 2, or number 3. Remember that, as usual, the challengers will receive $250 for every incorrect vote. Okay, all set? Polly, you ready?
Well, I can't remember whether I read about the forestay in the moon thing or whether I read about it in the Davis Cup. What? No.
Probably read about...
No,
probably
not
read
the
about...
Davis Cup. The other one where they have the boat, the slope, the sloop.
The
what-
slope.
So I was afraid to vote for number 1, and I was afraid to vote for number 2 because number 1 knew what it was, and number 2 said he never heard of it. So I voted for number 3.
You know what it is? Forestay?
Well, I read about it, but I forget now.
You sure it didn't have anything to do with the girdle?
That's what I thought. Exactly.
All right, I'll bring it in next week. I
Probably
did
read
one
about
or
it
the
in
other.
woman's wear. Jackie, what about your vote?
You want to know what mine
Yes,
is?
I do.
I voted for number 3 because I don't know what a forestay is either.
Well, no, it is really something.
It is something.
Yes.
Well, no. Go ahead. No, I just believe number 3. I'm not really up on my missiles except for a little bit of newspaper reading, but I think he knows what he's talking about.
Okay. Kitty, your vote.
I voted for number 3. Number 2 didn't know that radiation is at its peak at 250 miles, which I read in the paper. Don't pretend to be that smart. And also the girdle business.
Hi, what about yours?
Well, I voted for number 2. I thought it was number 3 because he's almost as pale as I am, and when you're down Florida, this can happen. But I voted for 2 because of some of the answers.
You may hear from the Chamber of Commerce on that. All right, there we have it. Our votes, our reasons, and if you have reasons that are better, well, you give them to yourselves. We're going to find out right now which one of these 3 gentlemen is the real Moon Project officer. So will the real Captain Brandy Griffith please stand up? Just a minute, Kitty, in just a minute. Now, let's see. Number 1. Oh, you have something you want
But
to say?
I'd like to make a point here that while I'm up here representing the Thor Able team, I'm just one of the boys, and I'm having a ball, and all the rest of them are down there working hard.
Credit where credit is due. I found on a trip I took a couple of weeks ago with the Defense Department that this was true all through the military. There are a series of great teams all the way.
Don't
Thank
believe
you.
everything you read in the papers, Kitty.
Oh, I see.
Number 1, would you tell us who you really are and what you do, please?
My name is George Sandville, and I'm a lifeguard at the Casablanca Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida.
Now, we do know why he's pale, don't we? Wait just a minute. Number 3, what about you?
My name's Mel Hunter, and I'm an illustrator and art director for magazines and books.
Well, I wish there were time for a few more questions, but I see that there are no more seconds left. I would like to check up on our scoring here. We find that there were 1, 2, 3 incorrect votes. Gentlemen, you did very well. Panel, not so good on that one. At $250 each, that's a total from Marlboro of $750. Hope you enjoyed your visit. We enjoyed having you. Good night to you, and good luck. And on your way out, pick up a carton of Marlboros each, will you?
What is your name, please?
My name is Dale Parry.
What is your name, please?
My name is Dale Parry.
What is your name, please?
My name is Dale Parry.
Again, panel, will you follow along with your copies of this affidavit? I, Zale Parry, am a skin diver. What started as a hobby has turned into a career in television. I am technical advisor, and I also appear in the televised film series Sea Hunt, starring Lloyd Bridges. I do all the actual underwater work for the women who appear in the show. My diving, however, is not confined to television. I presently hold the world skin diving record for women, 209 feet. Signed, Zale Parry. Now, panel, these three lovely young ladies all claim to be Zale Parry, champion skin diver, as you heard. We'd start this cross-examination with Jackie Cooper. Jackie?
Number one, what guild were you forced to join when you started this work in Sea Hunt?
SAG.
SAG. You mean S-A-G?
Right.
Screen Actors Guild. Number three, what does scuba mean?
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus.
Number two, do you know what this means?
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus.
I see. Number one, what does ZIV mean?
Ziv is a television producing studio.
Oh, you're pretty smart. Number two, what's the color of Lloyd Bridges' hair?
Sort of dirty blonde.
Dirty blonde.
Dirty blonde?
Dirty blonde.
Oh, boy.
Kitty Carlisle.
Number one, there's a hazard in going too deep in the water, and it produces a physical symptom. What is this called?
Well, actually, it would be called a drunken feeling if you go too deeply into the
Has
water.
it got a technical name?
Yes, it does. It's called nitrogen feeling.
Number two, is it technically correct to call skin diving with a lung skin diving?
No, it is not.
What's it called?
Scuba diving or lung diving.
Uh-huh. Number one, it says here that you won the women's record. What was the women's record before you broke it? Number three.
80 feet.
It was number one, is that correct? Is that the record you broke?
180 feet.
And you, number two?
180.
Hi, Gardner.
Number two, who is a fellow named Ivan Torres?
He is the producer of our series.
And what has Bert Granite got to do with the series?
I beg your pardon?
Bert Granite.
That name doesn't sound familiar.
Do you
to
know
me.
number one?
No, the name doesn't sound familiar to
Number
me.
three?
Name doesn't sound familiar.
That's interesting. He's the one of the producers. Number two, what is the name of the press agent who brought you in here tonight?
I don't have an agent.
Number one?
I haven't an agent.
Number three?
I haven't.
And number two, at what, this might be an interesting point. Do you know, by any chance, what time of the night and what day your show is seen in New York?
I think that it's seen at 10:30 in New York.
Number one?
10:30.
Polly?
Number two, who invented the aqualung?
Jacques Cousteau.
Number one, Gusteau made a film that's become an underwater classic. What is the name of that film?
The Silent World.
Number two, what is the record held by a man for scuba diving?
379 feet.
That's it, panel. Time is all up. It's time now to mark your ballots. If you will, please, again, without consultation, select number one, number two, or number three. What's that, Polly? For whom did you vote this time?
I voted for number one. It's very close, but I really don't know whether it's number one or number two, because they both gave awfully good answers. Number one seems to have a little more color, and I would figure she'd be out of doors a lot in her occupation.
Jackie?
I voted for number two because she was much more accurate with her depth records.
What about you, Kitty?
Well, I voted for number two for the same reason. I put down number three. As you can see, I've made rather a mess. But number three said 80 feet, and that seemed awfully little if the record is 209 feet, so I voted for number two.
Okay, and Hi?
Well, I voted for number two primarily on a hunch, I guess. I've been covering nightclubs for a lot of years, and I think I once saw her in a dive.
different kind of skin, too.
Different kind of water also.
Yes, all together. All right, there you have our reasons. Ambitious though they may sound, they did lead us to the voting as you heard it, and I hope yours matches up with it, or maybe not, because we may be wrong. Let's find out, shall we? As we discover which one of these three ladies is the real champion skin diver. So will the real Dale Parry please stand up? We'll let you track this down in just a second if we have time. I don't know if we will. Number one, would you tell us who you really are and what you do, please?
My name is Virginia Milan. I'm a vacation representative for United Airlines here in New York.
Thank you very much. And number two, what about you?
My name is Joan Jobber. I'm the regional supervisor for Vic Tanny's Gym and Health Club.
Well, I guess that's that, except number three. Why did you say 80 feet?
Because it's really true.
See there? Now you have your
Only
answer.
80 feet.
Okay. That's what it was, the record before. Ladies, checking up, you had a clean sweep here. 4 incorrect answers, or guesses, or votes, whatever you want to call them, at $250 each, means a close and very nice and happy round figure of $1,000 for Marlboro. Stop and pick up your cartons of Marlboros on the way out. Good night and best of good luck to you. Good for you. Panel, let's meet our third team of challengers.
What is your name, please?
My name is Nick Dallis.
What is your name, please?
My name is Nick Dallis.
What is your name, please?
My name is Nick Dallis.
Again, panel, will you follow along with your copies of this affidavit? I, Nick Dallis, am a psychiatrist. In college, I was an intercollegiate boxing champion. My psychiatric practice consumes my entire working day. So I find it necessary to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to pursue my other entirely separate career as the author of a nationally syndicated comic strip. This strip currently appears in 320 newspapers in the United States and 40 other papers in foreign countries. I am the author of the comic strip Rex Morgan, M.D., signed Dr. Nick Dallis. All right, panel, these three gentlemen all claim to be Dr. Nick Dallis, psychiatrist and author of the Rex Morgan comic strip. We'll start with Polly Bergen. Polly?
Number one, who is Dr. Morgan married to?
Oh, he's not married yet.
Number two, who did Dr. Morgan almost marry?
Well, he's been threatening to marry June Gill for some time.
Number three, who is June?
That's Dr. Morgan's nurse.
Number one, who is Dr. Morgan's nurse?
June Gale.
Number two, there is a blonde who is his nurse now. What is her name?
Ginger.
Number three, I read the script, you see, every single day. Number three, there were twins in the strip for a while. What was their names? Number one, there were twins in the script.
I wouldn't remember. It's too long ago.
Number two, there were twins.
I don't know. Don't recall.
Well, one was Derek, and they were blonde, and one, well, anyway. Number
And
three,
winsome.
there was an elderly woman who was a patient who was elderly. What was her name? Who was a friend?
Jackie Cooper.
A close
No,
friend?
there was an elderly woman who was a patient who wasn't elderly. There was an elderly woman. Number one. Number one. There was an elderly woman who was a patient who was elderly. What was her name?
You remember better than I do.
I remember her. Close friend.
Yeah.
All right. Number one, to what school of psychiatry do you subscribe?
None at all. I'm not an analyst,
I see.
and I don't subscribe to any particular school.
I see. Number three, to what school of psychiatry do you subscribe?
Not to any particular school, but I'm not an analyst.
I see. Number two, at what weight did you fight in college?
172 light heavyweight.
Number one.
Number one, who was Ernest Jones?
Oh, Ernest Jones was an English psychiatrist.
Number two, what did Anna Freud specialize in?
I do not know.
Number three, what did Anna Freud specialize in?
Psychology, I believe.
What kind?
I can't tell you that.
Do you know number one?
No, I don't.
Number two, schizophrenia has been physically induced. Where was this experiment made?
I believe it was a chemical.
Do you know, number 3, where
Something
this
to do
was
with-
made, this experiment?
Hi, Gardner.
Yes,
That's
do you
where it was
know?
made.
Do you know number 3?
I believe it was made in more than one place, but I'm almost certain it was in Louisiana.
Number 1, for what is a man named Richard Hoffman famous?
I don't know.
Do you know a Richard Hoffman, number 2?
No, I don't.
Number 3?
No.
Number 2, in what comic strip is Jackie Suzanne a running character? Would you know number 1?
That's it, panel. Whether they don't or not, it's time to vote. Will you please mark your ballots and vote for number 1, number 2, or number 3? All set, Polly? Whom did you vote?
I voted for number 2. Number 1 because I think he looks a little bit like Dr. Morgan.
Rex Morgan.
Number 2, he knew the name of the nurse, the current nurse. The other 2 gentlemen didn't know that.
Jackie, your vote?
Well, I voted for number 2 for that reason and also because he knew 170 was light heavyweight.
And Kitty?
Well, I voted for number 3 because when Polly said she read the strip, he smiled with the most pleasure.
Oh, all right. Hi, Gardner, your vote.
Well, I voted for number 3, but I'm not sure. It's very difficult to be able to determine a psychiatrist from a sitting position.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right, the votes are all bedded down now, and let's see whether we're right or wrong as we discover which one of these 3 gentlemen is the real psychiatrist, doctor, author of the Rex Morgan comic strip. Will the real Dr. Nick Dallis please stand up?
And he does look like him.
Thank you very much, sir. Number 1, would you tell us who you really are and what you do, please?
My name is Charles Calitri. I'm a teacher at Benjamin Franklin High School in the city.
And number 2, what about you?
My name is Gil McKean. I'm popular merchandise manager for popular albums and stereophonic tape, RCA Victor Records.
That Raytheon Corporation of America keeps cropping up, doesn't it? 2 weeks ago. Incidentally, our number 1 imposter, Charles Calitri, told you he's a New York City school teacher. He did not tell you, however, that he is the author of a brand new novel just published today by the Crown Publishing Company. It's called Strike Heaven on the Face, and it's already been bought for the movies by MGM. Lots of luck with the book, Mr. Calitri. Thank you, sir. And in checking up on our score, we find 2 incorrect votes tonight on this last round at $250 each for a total of $500 from Marlboro. You gentlemen accept with our compliments, please, a carton each of Marlboros on your way out. And thank you very much for being with us. Good night. Good luck. Well, Polly, you had kind of a bad week, didn't you, huh?
Well, if he doesn't know the name of his own doctor's nurse, then this is my fault.
Maybe we ought to substitute your daughter for you next week.
Well, Kathy and I both read it all the time, and I knew that his nurse name was Ginger. I think he cheated.
You do, really? Jackie?
No, I don't think he cheated exactly. I just don't think he gave the right answer.
Oh, Jackie, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think
He thinks he cheated.
I think he was probably nervous. You know, I'd be nervous if I had to go be a doctor, you know.
And you watch out, Polly. You wind up in this trip.
I'd be more nervous, Jackie, if I had to be your patient.
My beef is with the Cape Canaveral fellow who didn't know about the lethal radiation.
Well,
He says I
check
read
up
it
with
wrong
him
in
when
the
you go
paper.
backstage right after, because that's all the time we have for tonight. But I think we all had fun as we usually do. Jackie, again, nice to have had you with us. Wish we could invite you back next week, but we can't because we won't be here next week.
Well, that's
Next week,
right.
that's right, we have a week off because of a special program here on CBS. So we will be back in 2 weeks, so you'll be watching for us, won't you? At the same time, of course. We'll join you in 2 weeks again. Watch the special show on CBS next week. I guess that's it. Good night, panel.
Good night, Bud.
Good night, Bud.
And now this is Bud Collier saying good night from Marlboro and reminding you to tell the truth. Good night, everybody.
To Tell the Truth is a Mark Goodson, Bill Codman production in association with the CBS television network. Miss Bergen job by Wilma. Skin diving equipment courtesy of Sports Blade Company of Los Angeles.